You know, for 17 years I worked on the Philadelphia waterfront, and lots of people have asked me about that life. Today we're going to take a look at one aspect of it. We're going to take a tour of a tugboat named the High Roller. That's a great name for a boat. It's owned by my friend Harry Hayes, who's well into his 80s and he's not ready to retire. Harry's been on the water for more than 60 years. Well, I was only there for 17, but the High Roller was a big part of it, especially the last 5 years. I worked with this boat about every week, did towing jobs from Trenton all the way down to the Atlantic Ocean. So let's go aboard the High Roller and take a look. Searchlight, which comes in handy because the tug works 24 hours a day in all kinds of weather, and visibility can be challenging from time to time. Now just over your shoulder are the main exhaust stacks. Yeah, you breathe some smoke up here from time to time, which isn't fun. Alright, let's go back to the stern deck for a closer look. It's important to keep the lines organized. If they get tangled, you're in for a world of pain. That's why you see the stern towing line here all lined up nice and neat. It's also a good idea to keep an anchor on hand, just in case you lose power and need to drop the hook. And that's a stern cleat, good place to secure the line. And just forward you'll see the capstan, which enables the throttles for the main engines. Here's the captain's view of the foredeck again. He has to keep an eye on the deckhands as well as So, what do you think of the high roller? You want to go work on a tugboat? Well, I have to warn you, it's not the easiest life. You're out there in all kinds of weather. Sometimes you're away from home for a week or two or even a month. And it takes a special kind of person. You have to be a team player. And what the captain says, that's what goes. You have to do your job upon orders. If he says catch a line, you better catch that line. Because remember, these boats weigh hundreds of tons, and there's no small injuries. So you have to do your job right, and you have to do it quick. Either way, being on board a tugboat can be a great career. I did it for almost 17 years, and let me tell you, I met a lot of great people. Hopefully, we'll be able to interview them here at the show. So that was a visit to the High Roller. Thanks for taking the time to stay with us.